Shalom, 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 family. We're back at it again, fam. Hey, we just decided we want to bring this to the masses, man. We was gonna have a little quick conversation, just put little things out there, man. But we want everybody to get it in, man, get a feel of what we're doing over here at SVDL, man. We keeping it moving, man, forever progressing. That's what we do over here, fam. No doubt. We survive, we never die. It's SVDL, baby. This is Elder YARAH coming to you live, man. We got a special guest panelist tonight, Sister NANDI, man, debater here at Solar Vision Debate League family, and she's going to share with us, man, some of her thoughts on the topic at hand tonight. We're going to be talking about the killers of Malcolm X and the death of Malcolm X. We're going to be talking about Black history that is a part of Black history. We're going to be dealing with that, man. We're going to give our own complexion of what Black history really is. And we're really going to go into some things you probably never even heard of or even understood to be reality. And we're going to bring that out tonight. Also, we're going to have some opposing views on this. We're going to be talking about this. This is not a debate, but this is a discussion between scholars on the topic. And I said it, between scholars on the topic, because I guarantee you, you're going to find out something tonight you weren't aware of before in regards to the killers of Malcolm X and the death of Malcolm X, and the various things that surrounding this whole topic. It's always been something. We've seen the movie Malcolm X. We all seen the scene when Malcolm X was shot and killed in the Audubon ballroom. We all know it. We joke about it. Get your hands out of my pockets. You know, we hear that. It's become part of Black pop culture. And so we're just going to be talking about some different things. We're going to be talking about what was true and what's fake. You know, what's real and what's not real, right? We're going to let you walk away. You determine, you know, how you feel about this particular topic tonight. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. We're going to start with SOLARMIND. Everybody knows who SOLARMIND is, but we're just going to let them get a brief shout out. Just to give a little synopsis about what we're going to be discussing tonight, man. We're going to move forward. Then we're going to bring in our special guest panelist, our scholar for tonight in this particular topic, Sister NANDI. She's going to come on right after SOLARMIND. And then we're going to get into it. We're going to play a few clips, video clips, and we're going to have a real discussion, family, a real discussion tonight. So again, hey, shout out, man. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Hey, look, this is where it is. So let's get it in. SOLARMIND is on you, family. Are you with us, Solar? Your mic is unmuted, but I don't hear anything coming out, bro. All right, we're gonna wait till Solar get back. It's on you, Sister NANDI. She's gonna be our resident scholar on this topic tonight. She's gonna share some terrific information with us, some things you may not have been aware of. We had a brief discussion earlier, and I was like, wow. Very few times I hear on the topic, in regards to some things that I may have heard or what I thought of, but she changed my mind on a few things earlier, and some things I felt like I really had to look into. So we're going to get the floor to her, let her introduce herself, and give us just a little background on what we're going to be discussing tonight. All right. So it's on you, Sister NANDI.
Okay, peace, Brother YARAH. Excuse me.
Shalom, sis.
And peace, Brother Solar. I just want to say I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm definitely ready to get into this discussion about the Malcolm X assassination. And I want to say shout out to Black Sun. I wasn't able to get on the other night, but I want to tell him congratulations on the win on the debate. Him and KOT both did great. Those are two of my,
Absolutely.
I love KOT. I watch his debates as well. So I just like the performance and all the information that was brought. I learned something from both of those brothers. So I just wanted to say that. And I just want to tell everybody, thank you to all of my supporters, Shabu, Poetic Empress, everybody that supports me and keep me going. A lot of the people in the chat and the support that they give me is what keeps me doing what I do. So I just want to say thank you, and I'm ready to get into the information.
Peace, peace, peace and love. Solar, are you with us? We can't hear you if you're not with us, SOLARMIND. But this is what we're gonna do, man. I'm gonna play a few clips, Sister Nandi. We're gonna wait till Solar jump in. But I'm gonna play a few clips and just for the audience to get some kind of context of some of the things we're gonna be discussing, and then you just flow freely like how you do. We'll wait for SOLARMIND to chime in with us. But for now, let me share my screen.
Okay. Shabu, free spirit. I see all my people in their pieces. I'm gonna make sure I respond to that email.
Thanks.
After decades, the two men found guilty of the assassination of
Malcolm X
have been exonerated, validating long-held doubts about who actually killed the civil rights leader. For many years, historians have questioned the case against the two men, Muhammad Aziz and Khalil Islam, who each spent more than 20 years in prison following their 1966 convictions. A 22-month investigation conducted jointly by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and lawyers for the men found that prosecutors and two of the premier law enforcement agencies, the FBI and the NYPD, had withheld key evidence that, had it been turned over, would likely have led to their acquittal. The probe followed the release of the Netflix documentary series Who Killed Malcolm X, which again assembled the case for their innocence. The exoneration is a remarkable and long overdue acknowledgement of the grave errors that were made in this vastly important case. Mr. Aziz, who was released in 1985, is now 83. Mr. Islam, who was released in 1987, died over a decade ago.
While I do not need this court, these prosecutors, or a piece of paper will tell me I'm innocent, I am very glad that my family, my friends, and the attorneys who have worked and supported me over these years are finally saying the truth that we have all known, officially recognized.
Yeah. So there it is, family. That's
why is it always the furniture that has
let me
to
stop this
with the
right
latest
here.
brawl?
So this is going to set the context for our discussion tonight. SOLARMIND, have you made it back yet, brother?
Yeah, I'm here, brother.
All right, bet. We all know who SOLARMIND is, but we just wanted to give you some context, basically on what we're going to be discussing tonight. So that clip right there just sort of set the background of what we're talking about, and then we're going to go a little bit further. I also have another clip I want to play to get you guys' opinion on in regards to this whole situation and how it actually flows and ties into what we're talking about here in regards to who killed Malcolm X. So Solar, just kind of introduce yourself. You don't really need any introduction on your channel, bro. But for those of us new here, let us know, man, what you're doing, and let's talk about this, brother.
Yeah, as you already know who I am, a SOLARMIND Commissioner, Solar Vision Debate League. Yeah, definitely, I think it's a very interesting topic. It's something that came past me. The information came past me, and it definitely was something that I was planning on looking into, and definitely should be a very interesting dialogue. You're dealing with something that's historical and monumental. That's what I said earlier. You had a lot of assassinations going on around this time period, and so much so that even a president within that decade of the 1960s was assassinated. So you see that it was a very crucial era in terms of where we were headed, and looking at it hindsight, where we're at today. And we can now look at it hindsight and kind of put another piece to the puzzle as to what exactly is going on in terms of our struggle for liberation or equality, whichever lane that you're in, and as on the other side as to what the enemy is doing. And when I say the enemy, I'm talking about the white man. That's what I'm talking about. So because obviously it was certain moves that was made on his part to actually execute certain things which could lay the foundation to assassinations in that particular era. So this should be a very interesting dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so let's get right into it. Sister Nandi, SOLARMIND made a brief statement, right, just now. He said this is a very crucial piece of the puzzle that fits. Does this exoneration of these two killers, does this actually fit for you?
No, it doesn't.
Tell us why. Let's get into that.
It fits for the plan, and I'm gonna take you all through that. It fits for the plan that was played out, but in my personal opinion, I think these two brothers was paid off. I understand that they've been proclaiming their innocence, and it actually was 3 brothers that was in jail for this. But when I be able to point out the information of their affiliation, who they were, funny how these people also got exonerated after the so-called Who Killed Malcolm X documentary came out, which that was also created by a Muslim that's under the leadership of Louis Farrakhan. And there's a number of other things that I found out about this. So now that I've done more research, they were released in 85 and 87. You mean to tell me it took this long for Benjamin Crump, and we all know his history, but it took this long for all of these people to come up with information from FBI files that has been there? Because I also looked at the documented date of the information in the FBI files. And now after this documentary, so-called raising another eye to people instead of us paying attention to what Farrakhan stated. Now it's clearing so-called Farrakhan in the Nation of Islam, and now these brothers are exonerated. It's just kind of puzzling to me. They get exonerated after the release of the documentary, because that was 2019, 2020. This is 21.
Right. So is it your view, right, that the Nation of Islam, the NOI, because you mentioned Farrakhan, that they are solely responsible for the death of Malcolm X in some way, form, or fashion?
I'm gonna say this. Solely for me, it's the people who initiated it. So definitely I feel that they were solely responsible. Did they act alone? No. They already had affiliations with the NYPD. There was already affiliations with the FBI. And with them knowing all of this stuff and the certain things that I'll be able to bring out more in my conversation, it shows that all of these same people were involved in this. There was a number of reasons why they wanted Malcolm gone, and it wasn't just because he exposed Elijah for being a pedophile. And I'll get further, more into that when, you play your clips and we get more into detail of the discussion. I'm gonna go down a little history and bring everybody up to where, I feel these people played their role, because it's other people that was never mentioned, although the FBI, the NYPD, and even the Nation of Islam know about this. So now on one hand, the Nation of Islam, they protect Black people. That's what they say. They stand for their members. They talk real tough, but it ain't been no bloodshed or even no reality brought about the murder of Malcolm or Khaled. And I think that's something that we should pay attention to.
All right. So feel free to jump in, man. So do you feel like this should rest solely? We should be resting the death and the assassination of Malcolm X solely on the shoulders of the NOI?
No, I believe that obviously he became a world figure, and even what he was promoting after he left the Nation of Islam, as you kind of can see in the documentary, or even in the movie version of Malcolm X, is enough evidence and enough accounts of people confirming that he was being followed. So when you're leaving the United States, that's going into the CIA, so I believe that, it was a much bigger thing, especially after he left the Nation of Islam, where he was becoming a world figure. And it was Arab interest that was going on within the mix of that. So it was a much bigger thing that was beginning to evolve at the height of a Black Power movement in the 1960s. And, in light of not only with maybe it could be an argument posed by the organizations itself, but in terms of the influence that it had on the masses, I think that was something that was problematic to the overall agenda of the government So they had to definitely do something with the leaders. And as you can see, and it's something we can keep in mind, as far as with, a lot of assassinations occurred in the 1960s. Even, we talking about JFK, we're talking about Martin, Malcolm, so, you see a Fred Hampton, I believe. I don't know if that's maybe the 70s, but that whole era, you're seeing that there was a collective effort and by the government to silence the leaders of that era. So I don't think Malcolm would have been left out of that category in terms of, and we see that it was documentation that was even laid out there, exposing that reality, so I believe that, yeah, it's possible, definitely highly possible that you had members of the Nation of Islam that was involved in the assassination. But I think that the overall agenda of would fall into the hands of the FBI, because they made it clear that they were trying to silence, any voice that was speaking out against the system overall. And that's pretty much what J. Edgar Hoover's job was, was to silence, those who would be, promoting forms of revolution in the height of a Cold War situation that they were involved in. So I guess, when you're looking at it in terms of it serving two interests, then you could see maybe that could be an argument that's being posed. But I think that ultimately, there was no way that you had a situation where it takes into a person on his deathbed for, the truth to get put out there without the FBI being involved in that, without the police being involved in that. And when you're talking about their involvement, you're talking about a much bigger issue, because you're not just talking about some type of domestic situation occurring within the nation. So if they had interest into killing Malcolm, and they incentivize that, within that domestic situation, that must mean that they had a reason why they wanted to silence him as well. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it.
Yeah. For some reason, I think, Sister Nandi, you calling bullshit on some of that.
Yes, I am.
Let's get into it.
Before we even get into the exoneration, let's look at historically all the things that happened with Malcolm before he was actually assassinated. Now, we know that these brothers were released in 87, but then you got to think that, hold on a second, because I'm going through my notes. Y'all know I keep notes. Malcolm left the Nation of Islam in 1964. A big issue is he took a lot of those members with him. He created the Organization of African American Unity. Elijah had a really big problem with that. Elijah was jealous because Malcolm outshined Elijah so much, to the point where majority of the members, not only, a lot of people already didn't deal with Farrakhan. A lot of people didn't deal with him already. So Elijah was the last leg to stand on. So when you get somebody in there that powerful like Malcolm, he took a lot of the attention off the two individuals that were actually supposed to be the heads or the people that were running the Nation of Islam. When we look at other things that went on, with Malcolm and the leader of Temple Number 7, when he ordered the bombing on Malcolm's car, and that was in March. April 10th, and the reason why I'm going through these series of events is because if they went through all of this trying to kill Malcolm, why would they not be in bed with the FBI and the NYPD when it came to Malcolm's murder? And I'm going to touch a lot on Notorious B.I.G. NYPD, Muslim indicated or suspected to be behind the killing of Notorious B.I.G. And Farrakhan had some type of ties with this same particular Muslim, but never had any convictions or anything. So a lot of stuff sure happens in New York that you know, Farrakhan be involved in, but just never, you know, get indicated in any of these murders. So let me go ahead and go through the rest of my history. On April 10th of the same year, if you look at Muhammad Speaks, they had a cartoon in there depicting Malcolm basically with a decapitated head, a bouncing decapitated head. Also, a couple of weeks after that, Farrakhan posted an article saying that somebody like Malcolm deserved to be dead. And that's just, you know, that's how I quote, but everybody knows what was actually said. He deserved to be dead. Then we get to February 14th. Malcolm's house was burned. But before the house was burned, the Nation of Islam had him in court. They evacuated his family, took him to court in order for them to take the house back from him. So since they realized they weren't going to be able to really do that, and I'm going to make sure that the next conversation we have, because I'm going to go into a lot of details about Malcolm, they burned the house down. February 21st, 1965, Malcolm was dead, 21 gunshots. Now let's talk about the people that was involved. They got these 3 brothers that was arrested for it, but that was to take the focus off the real situation. There was a brother named Hayes. I'm pulling up my notes in my phone, so give me a second. And I also want to tell y'all who I was funding the NOI at that time, which was a lot of Jews and different organizations, Arabs and things like that he was getting his funding from. Malcolm found out a lot about all of this information, so it wasn't just something that was going on with the situation with Elijah and these children. So if y'all could just give me a second and let me get my notes up if y'all want to make some comments while I pull up this information that I have.
Okay. Well, in terms of, you know, the firebombing of the house, and I would have to see that how that was authorized by Elijah Muhammad. I don't know about that. Now I know that it was an issue, you know, obviously with the statements that he made, and you know, condemning the Nation of Islam, as what you're saying with the situation with the women, and also with him making certain comments about John F. Kennedy, which would lead him to be silenced by the Nation of Islam. So I think that along with people on the outside, you know, kind of, you know, in Malcolm's ear, telling him about, you know, what he can do outside of the Nation of Islam, all played a factor into, you know, you had people in the Nation of Islam that was jealous of him. Some people were infiltrated within the mix of the organization from the outset. So in light of that, and when a situation arises, you're going to have a lot of stuff going on that in many ways is beyond Elijah Muhammad. Now, I would have to see how that was authorized by Elijah Muhammad to do the firebombing and, you know, things of that nature, you know. So I never seen anything that would point in that direction. But even being that as it may, even if we would say, you have the information ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I didn't mean to cut you off. I actually thought I was muted. I was saying I'm gonna give him the info. I'm sorry, Solar. What I'm trying to say is this: when you got somebody exposed to you, see, this is the thing you got to look at with Elijah. Elijah was pissed about that exposure, and secondary, you brought up Kennedy. If this man, Elijah Muhammad, is teaching the white man's the damn devil, right? That's what he teaches. The white man's the devil. The white man is this. The white man is that. Why do you care anything about him saying the chickens came home to roost? He should have stood behind that 100%. None of the other people didn't care anything about that, but the Coon and Negroes like Martin Luther King and all of these different individuals who supported that integrationist crap, But black leaders, true black leaders, nobody gave a damn about Kennedy being killed. And if Kennedy was killed, this is what you have to look at. And if Elijah was already being funded by the government, I proved that several times. Then when the government and Elijah had this agreement, it's okay, he's exposing me for sleeping with children. And on top of that, he said something about Kennedy. Perfect way to knock him off and make it look like it's the government. Perfect setup. But see, the government real smart. They play a deadly game. Gay Edgar Hoover, deadly game. That's why he still let black people take the fall for it. One thing about the FBI and the CIA and all of them, they're gonna give you the information you need. You just gotta open your eyes to see it. It wasn't no white people. It was a white man supposedly killed Martin Luther King. Why? But then when we look at the situation with Malcolm, it was 3 black brothers. They telling you who was behind the government, even though Jesse Jackson was involved with the setup. The white man killed Martin because his purposes was done. He had already led us to slaughter. Now let me get rid of him, because the same way they was listening to him marching and talking about peace, when he gets to this poor man's march, and you got all these radicals and everything out here, somebody getting blown the hell up. So we're gonna go knock him out. That was the government and greedy, messy Jesse. But when you look at Malcolm X, and like I stated, you saying something about how would it point to Elijah? When him and Elijah had his differences, and that's just being realistic here. That's just like being in the streets. If I'm a big time drug dealer and I get on there and I snitch on all my peoples, and I told all my being about the cartel, everything or whatever I'm involved in, you really think them people ain't gonna want me dead? Because see, if Malcolm had killed, he knew more than what he was already saying. And he was going to expose that at the Ottoman ballroom. A lot of people don't want to talk about that. He was going to throw Elijah and Farrakhan under the bus. One, about all the stuff he'd already spoke about, them meeting with the KKK, dealing with the Nazis. He had already spoke about the infidelities of Elijah Muhammad. He spoke about the pedophilia of Elijah Muhammad. Told about the funding, and on top of that, they talked about Malcolm talked about the white man who gave him the money. Why would he not want him out the way? And on top of that, when he left, a lot of people don't want to talk about that. Before Malcolm came, the Nation of Islam really wasn't noticed. It was known about in the northern area, but not too fluent in the South. Another thing you have to look at as well, when all of this stuff happened and Malcolm left, how many people did he really take with him? Nobody wanted to be left under the leadership of Farrakhan. Not too many. You got a few of them over there, and that's only because they contractually bonded for all of the dirty stuff they done did for him. But Farrakhan was even jealous. Because if Malcolm would have survived and not revealed all that information, Elijah was going to hand the Nation of Islam over to Malcolm, not Farrakhan. So all of this leads back to them. And even including the other 4 brothers that was affiliated with Farrakhan in all of his temples, because we know that they have jids and we got temples. Most of the temples was up under Farrakhan in the north. So nobody never mentioned Hayes. Nobody never mentioned the affidavits that Hayes wrote out. And then he gave 4 other brothers' names. Norman 3X Butler. His name was Tamaj Hayer. You had Thomas 15 Johnson. All of these different people, and I'm going on down so I can get into my notes. All of these individuals was in these temples that was ran by Farrakhan. Farrakhan also had rented the Ottoman ballroom a couple of weeks prior to Malcolm being killed. He was in town when Malcolm killed, so-called giving a speech somewhere else. But it's just kind of coincidental that he shows up on the day that Malcolm's killed. In Hayes' affidavit, he named 4 other men, and this was when he was first arrested, but these men were never questioned or never found. All of the members were in the Nation of Islam in Newark, New Jersey, Temple number 25, as having participated with him in the crime. Hayes asserted that a man he knew as Wilbur Kinley, later identified as Wilbur McKinley. Now, what I want y'all to catch before I go through these names, later identified. If they were later identified, and I can show you where some of these people didn't die until the late 80s, early 90s, none of them was ever brought up. None of them was ever questioned. After a brother wrote an affidavit admitting not only was he in conspiring with the Nation of Islam, but all of these brothers as well, at the orders of Elijah Muhammad and Farrakhan. Let me continue. Wilbur McKinley, he said William McKinley's role is he's the one that shouted out and threw the smoke bomb to create the diversion. Hayer also said that a man named Willie, later identified as William Bradley, had a shotgun and was the first person to fire on Malcolm. After the diversion, Hayes also asserted that he and a man named Lee, or Leon, later identified as Leon Davis, both armed with pistols, fired on Malcolm X. Immediately after the shotgun blast, Hayer also said that a man named Ben, later identified as Benjamin Thomas, was involved in this conspiracy. Hayer's statements failed to even convince authorities, and they refused to reopen the investigation of the murder. Butler, now known as Muhammad Abdul Aziz, was paroled in 1985. He became the head of the Nation of Islam's Harlem Mosque, and that's why I say you have to pay attention to that. Now you got mosques and you got temples. Now who are the temples ran up under? Do in Solar or?
Yeah, the temples is the Nation of Islam. The mosque is like Sunni Islam.
Mm-hmm. And the Sunnis.
Well, they did convert it to mosque eventually, though. So yeah, I mean, it could be both today now. Yeah.
This man also wrote a letter and wrote in his affidavits, and this was all the way back when he was arrested when Malcolm first was murdered, that the two men that was arrested, although maintaining their innocence, they still played a role. So what was it? Was it for them to be paid off? Because these other four brothers, people would have really known it was done by by Elijah Muhammad and Farrakhan. If these four brothers that really had something to do with this was arrested, even Hayes was hidden. And these brothers, they lived, let me tell you, because I don't understand why they wasn't questioned. When you go down here and look, let me go to it 1 second because I'm going in my notes, y'all. All right. Benjamin Thomas was killed in 1986. Leon Davis, as of 1989, was reported to still be living in Peterson, New Jersey. Little is known about what happened to Wilbur McKinley, and one researcher has concluded that he may have died. William Bradley spent decades as a criminal. Now, you done been through the system all these times and never once questioned about the Malcolm X murder. He was charged in connection with the 1968 bank robbery in Livingston, New Jersey, but in the end, he also had, that charge was dropped. Then in 1980, Bradley was also convicted of several charges related to robbery, aggravated assault, and drug possession. As of 2011, he was still living in New Jersey under the name Al-Mustafa Shabazz. Now you got all these people that was indicated in this murder. Every last one of them have ties to Farrakhan and Elijah, and not one of them was questioned in all of these years. Even after one of the main suspects wrote affidavits. And when you write affidavits in court, that means you're going to stand on your statement and testify on that. And none of them was never brought in or never questioned. But it's funny how right after one of them died, two of them died, somebody's getting arrested, all of this stuff going on. Now, all of a sudden, these brothers are exonerated. Because if they had got exonerated before this, people would have raised an eye and start questioning, well, who was really behind it? Because a lot of people know that the Nation of Islam was in it. We all know the government played a role. Of course, the government played a role. Tell you why I look at it like that, because the Nation of Islam, they said, was infiltrated. Malcolm even said that. Infiltrated heavily with FBI and NYPD informants. But they was never charged with anything. Never shut down. Nobody even did an investigation or figured out what was going on with Elijah and these girls. Nobody never thought about all of the undermining things and some of the stuff that the FOI was involved in, because there's many other Muslims that came up missing or dead during that time. So if they were so heavily infiltrated, how was that organization, out of the Panthers, even the United Slaves, all of these different organizations was infiltrated, torn down, and exposed, but Elijah's gloves are squeaky clean? Oh no, it shows you that anytime somebody get away with stuff like that, and out of the Nation of Islam, I was talking about the white man, the devil, and Malcolm was preaching by any means necessary. You mean to tell me they didn't try to tear down the Nation of Islam? Don't make sense to me.
Well, that poses a good question. And so I want you to jump in, but I want to play this clip real quick of Malcolm X and some things he actually had to say about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So let me share my screen really quickly. Let's see what it does here. Let me go back. There it is.
But back in March, you said it was because the black...
Started over.
Minister Malcolm, when you broke with Elijah Muhammad back in March, you said it was because the black Muslims were too narrowly sectarian and inhibited, and because Elijah Muhammad had become blindly jealous of you and the personal following you had gathered.
I said the first part, but the last part, I didn't say that Elijah Muhammad himself had become blindly jealous. I mentioned that it was his family and the officials in Chicago. Everything that I said always was designed to protect Mr. Muhammad himself, primarily because the image that he had created was the image that enabled his followers to remain strong in faith and things of that sort. And I didn't want to see any adverse effect or negative result develop in the faith of all of his followers. Mm-hmm. But actually, despite the fact that I tried to protect the Muslim movement, if you'll notice, they used their newspaper to slander me and to label me as a hypocrite and as a rebel. And Mr. Muhammad himself said that I defected. Well, in reality, I never even left the Muslim movement. They put me out. And they put me out because of what I knew. And what I knew was told to me by Mr. Muhammad's son, Wallace Muhammad himself. They put me out and they put him out.
Well, now, first of all, let's find out what it is that Wallace Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad's son, told you.
Well, number one, if you notice, the stick that I always used in presenting, representing, and defending the Muslim movement was the fact that it had the ability to reform the morals of the so-called Negro community. It eliminated drug addiction, alcoholism, fornication, adultery, loose sexual behavior, which meant that it eliminated bastard babies, illegitimate children. Well, as long as I knew that this was what it represented and it gave me a strong stick, I could represent it and defend it. But we had a law which was that whenever any Muslim became involved in any kind of sexual relationship with someone to whom they weren't married, that person would be brought before the Muslim community, humiliated, and then isolated for from 1 to 5 years. This was our law. Well, in 1954, a teenage sister left Detroit and became one of Mr. Muhammad's personal secretaries. And there in the Chicago office, she became pregnant after being there for a year. And she was brought before the Muslim community and humiliated and isolated. And a year later, another secretary, this time one from Lansing, Michigan, came to Chicago. She also became pregnant. She was brought before the community and humiliated and isolated. And because the other person was never brought forth during this court session, it was concluded by all of Mr. Muhammad's followers that it was a non-Muslim who was the other party. Well, we grew so rapidly until that in 1957 or 58, the secretarial staff was expanded to, I think, 8 teenage sisters. In 1959, 6 of them disappeared. 2 of them reappeared in Philadelphia about 2 or 3 months later, and they were all right. The other 4 reappeared in 1960. All 4 of them had babies. All 4 of them had become involved with someone and become pregnant and had these children. So it was, from what I now know, when the 4 of them got back to Chicago and began to compare notes, they found that the same man had told all of them the same story and had made all of them pregnant. That the same man was the father of all 4 of their children and had also been the father of the children brought forth by the 2 secretaries who preceded them. So this story was kept among these sisters until 1962. 2 of them rebelled against the person who was responsible and began to tell the story all over the city of Chicago. It caused many of the Muslims in the Chicago mosque to leave and go back out in the street. They knew it. And I knew nothing about it until 1963 when Mr. Muhammad's son, who had been in prison, came out, and he had been a minister, and he was very religious and spiritual. And when he began to hear these rumors around Chicago, he went to one of the sisters, and the sister admitted to him that the rumor was true. And it was he who first told me about it. And when he told me about it, I wrote to Mr. Muhammad and told him about it, and he admitted that he had a knowledge of it, and that he'd given me a religious explanation that would fit into prophecy and all of that. So I was quiet. And it wasn't until October of 1963 that it came up again. And when it came up again, I realized that the same person who had made these other sisters pregnant was still busy doing the same thing. He hadn't stopped. 2 of the sisters had 2 children by the same man. And one of those 2 sisters was pregnant still, getting ready to have a 3rd child by the same man. So when it was known among the Chicago officials that I had a knowledge of this, they became very fearful of me. They became very antagonistic toward me, and they had to do something to diminish the authority that I had, for fear that if this became public knowledge, the followers would leave the Muslim movement and follow me. And it was.
All right.
I'm sorry, y'all. Do y'all see that Malcolm's daughter was found dead today?
Yeah, I'm about to play that. I'm about to show that right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get
and that's what I'm saying. And even going back into a few years ago, his grandson, I believe, was murdered. So you have this whole thing going on with Malcolm, and I believe his mother, died in the house was on fire or something. Or was that Betty, Sister Betty? How did she pass?
Yeah, she was found dead in the house. I'm sorry, y'all. That kind of blowed me. I really kind of looked up some of the. I'm sorry, y'all.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
iPhone 13 Pro on us when you trade your old
I'm trying to see what I can get it here really quickly.
Upgrade it, whether you're a current customer or a new one, and get up to $800 when you switch, because everyone deserves better.
Breaking news right now, and it involves one of the daughters of the late Malcolm X, 56-year-old Malika Shabazz, found dead tonight inside her home. This is in Midwood, Brooklyn. She was discovered, we're told, by her daughter. Now, at this point, New York cops say the death does not appear suspicious. Her death, of course, comes less than a week after 2 men convicted of killing her father back in 1965 were exonerated.
Yeah. So
this is a bunch of noise. Same thing they said about Colin. Natural causes a damn brain aneurysm. This is bullshit, man. I know how that organization get out. Y'all excuse me. Let me just get myself together for a minute.
And I wanted to kind of address with some of the stuff that was mentioned, before we actually watched the video clip. I think it was brought up something along the lines of about the JFK assassination, and it was told by the Nation of Islam not to make any comments. It was just, I believe, from the stuff that I read, that it was just more of a strategic move, because a lot of black people were in support of Kennedy. So he would rather not even talk about it, because at that time you had this vying for position of perspectives, and to talk about that situation in light of a individual or human being being murdered, it's not going to be a good look either way. So I guess that's why it was a wise move on the part of Elijah Muhammad to say that, well, just that we ain't gonna even deal with that. So I mean, it was orders that was given, and this is the thing with you talking about how organizations are ran. Once the orders is given, whether you really agree with it or not, or you feel as though I mean, if you're part of the organization, then that's the orders, and you got to follow the orders. Anything outside of that, then that means there's a conflict of interest, and then that means that you may, most likely hurt the organization knowingly or unknowingly, when you're making certain statements after you was told not to make the statement. So Malcolm had a responsibility to follow that. Now, what made that so significant was because, as what was said, you had a lot of people that was either infiltrated within the Nation of Islam or jealous of Malcolm. And that would definitely fuel the flames of, proving their point. If he's like now not listening to direct orders given to him from the person that is the leader of the particular movement, which obviously at that time was Elijah Muhammad. So, yeah, that would be something that would be an issue. This is why he was silenced. In terms of the whole thing with, I think it was said that Elijah Muhammad was jealous of Malcolm. Man, I mean, we just played the clip. He just said really he don't think that Elijah was jealous of him. I think that Elijah was looking for a very charismatic speaker that could push the message.
I ain't trying to cut y'all off. I just want to let you know I'm run to the bathroom. So if y'all call my name, I'll be right back.
Okay, no problem. Okay. And I think that in terms of that, he was actually looking for somebody like a Malcolm. And as what you heard from Malcolm, I don't think he felt as though Elijah was jealous of him. I think that the position was needed at the time. He had a few people that was vying for the position. I think that more so it would be maybe it could be an argument with Farrakhan being jealous because as the sister Nandi was saying, like most likely the nation would have been handed to Malcolm eventually. So I mean, I'm trying to put together, okay, is he jealous of him or do he want to give them the nation? Because I mean, so I think that it was more so on the part of the people that felt as though that they could be just as an effective speaker as him. And it was on one part jealousy if it was a true member of the Nation of Islam. And you also had a lot of infiltration going on within the organization. What made it so difficult? Because I know you hear the things about like the Black Panthers, and you see like, well, what about the Black Panthers, and what about other organizations that was kind of infiltrated, and a white man shot JFK. I mean, shot Martin Luther King and things of that nature. The unique thing about the Nation of Islam was that it was a separatist organization, and they were not an aggressive militant organization. They would say we're going to defend ourselves. Then they had a lot of strong rhetoric within their speech, but in terms of their approach on dealing with it was very passive in a way, from a standpoint of what you're seeing going on with the civil rights movement. Like the civil rights movement, you see like sit-ins. They're actually going into areas that they allegedly was not supposed to go in by law. So in terms of how the law was structured and how the society was structured at that time, the followers of the SNLC, they were breaking the law to prove their point. The Nation of Islam was like, okay, the white man's the devil. Y'all stay over here. We're going to be over here. We kind of separating from the white man. We need to do for self. So it wasn't really that much of engagement that was going on with the Nation of Islam and the actual establishment. You just saying like from a rhetorical, intellectual standpoint, he was articulating certain points to prove the treachery and the evilness of the white man, and you know, things of that nature. But in terms of from a political standpoint, you would see that most likely the civil rights protesters would be more of a problem because they are actually messing with established norms and established laws at that time. So, you know, that's when you really look into the dynamic of that. You know what I'm saying? The real battleground was when they actually sit down and begin to dialogue. And that's when you had, you know, very articulate individuals like Malcolm. He will be able to point out the fallacies of the system and why we should separate. You know, that was their strong point. You know, but in terms of, you know, on a day-to-day basis, they was not really that aggressive. You know, so it had to be a different approach in light of that. You know, so I think the objective was to kind of destroy it from within. You know, put people in there to cause commotion, put people in the mix to cause kind of chaos, to stir things up, or when a problem happens, go to the extreme, like burning down the house, or go to the extreme, like, you know what I'm saying, things. Now, I think that ultimately, when you turn in terms of leadership, it was certain things that, you know, Elijah Muhammad could have prevented, like certain things that was being put into the final call and things of that nature. But at the same time, it's like a beef going on. And remember that Elijah Muhammad, you know, he was actually dying from very sick from the bronchitis. And a lot of people feel that he was being poisoned as well. So, I mean, to even say that, well, how come he didn't die? It's some people that's suggesting that he was being poisoned. So, in light of all that, I think that ultimately you have a group of people who have a specific agenda, and they seen that this was a problematic organization. You can see it within the files, the FBI files, and they were making it very clear that the organization itself was a problem and the leader of the organization was a problem. So I think that when problems arise and you know, tempers flare, and you know, you couple that with jealousy and also infiltration, you're gonna see stuff like that happen. You know, so it's like it's possible. I mean, it's possible, but then the thing would be, well, what was the role of the FBI then? If it was just, you know, this thing where it was just jealous people that wanted to kill Malcolm, what role would they have to play in that? You know what I'm saying?
They would have to play a role in covering it up. They would have to play a role in keeping everything quiet. The same role they played when they had people like William O'Neill. They're going to protect their informants, and they're going to protect those that they have these contracts with. The same thing would happen with Huey P. Newton and a lot of other people. You know, they cover up what they're doing because they take out all the powerful. That's what role they play in it. Because if the FBI was doing their job according to what they supposed to be doing, right, then they would have been able to figure out what was going on with Malcolm. These other brothers would have also been interviewed after someone indicated them, a suspect indicated them in the murder. You know, and then you got to think J. Edgar Hoover, he came up with the FBI and all of these different organizations in order to push counterintelligence because there was a war on Black leaders, especially the militant ones. So the coons, the sellouts, certain people, they kept them on their payroll. Those that they felt was a threat, they killed them. The only reason they killed Martin is because in the end, Martin vowed to tell the truth. When he did that, that speech about, I can't remember which one it was, dang. But when he was pissed off at Jesse, and he was saying he wasn't scared of nobody, he not afraid of nobody. The next speech Martin was going to give, he was going to reveal everything that they got, the 1,500,000 they got from the government, how they was put into the march, all of that stuff that was going on back then, these white people, J. Edgar Hoover and his government had a whole bunch of hands in it. So that was their job, to cover it all up like they doing. And now they releasing everybody to keep all of their stuff out of the way. Keep everybody from knowing. Because you know dang on well if people like Malcolm, and we could say some of the Panther members, Fred Hampton and all these different people, if blacks had known that the FBI and all of these different organizations was involved in that, hell, we already had, you know, uprisings everywhere. People was throwing bombing shit, setting stuff on fire. I mean, there was things going on. We had rebellions. So if black people knew that, and you got the Black Panthers and all of these different organizations back then, it would have been a lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff going on. The Panthers was already forming, even though they hadn't completely put their organization together yet. Because let's remember, that was also another Panther group before Huey P. Newton, and I'm not talking about in Lyons County. There's another Panther group. That's why they, you know, people be saying the US organization, but they was the Panther something organization. I gotta find it. And so they already had militants and stuff that they was after. This has been a long-term thing when it comes to J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI and counterintelligence. Counterintelligence means we're going to counter people's minds. We're going to lead the black people to think it was one way, but it really was to undermine the black people that they have in their communities. They have never been able to get one of us unless they send one of us. And that's something we need to pay close attention to. So what better way to do it than to get the people that you don't agree with, that is your enemy at this point. And then when they kicked them out, you know, when he left the Nation of Islam, no security, no foundation. And I just wanted to answer one question for Asiatic Lion. No, Asiatic Lion, he did not lose that case. And I'm going to pull it up when it came to his house. The Nation of Islam then ordered him to vacate, and Malcolm wouldn't vacate. So they burned the house down. They was just hoping that Malcolm and his beautiful children and his wife died in the process. If they won the house back, why would they bomb the house when they could have just waited until he was evicted and got their property back? They bombed the house for a purpose. One, because they didn't win their case. They actually postponed the case. They postponed going to court because they thought they was going to kill him. Because if he had went to court, ain't no telling what Malcolm would have told those people on the Nation of Islam. Let's just be realistic here. There was too much information already out. So to protect Elijah's pedophilia, to protect the funding and all of the contracts and the land they got here in Magnolia, Georgia from the KKK and the Nazis, to protect all of the other people they murdered and all the other black people they stabbed in the back, of course, they teamed up and they killed Malcolm. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to kind of, all right, so how would that be? You're saying that on the one hand that Elijah Muhammad played a role in, doing this, or being a part of it. And then the role that the FBI playing was to hide the actual perpetrators, but they was the ones that accused those people, and now they're getting off.
No, they wasn't the ones that accused those people. They said all of that. This is what I'm saying. The FBI does stuff like that all the time. In order to keep that, they're just like, I can't think of his name because I don't have my notes in front of me when this stuff happened with William O'Neal. And there was another brother in the party. And William O'Neal, they killed him. And that's when Fred said, why you kill him? Because he was a snitch, Bob. He was a snitch. He was a snitch. And if I catch any motherfucking snitch in the Black Panther Party, I'm killing them all. I'm killing them all. The Hollywood one is the main one. If he said something, first of all, the government was pissed already because he was talking about Kennedy. But we already knew Elijah was in the bed with them. I don't give a damn how many crocodile tears these black people was crying for Kennedy. If you are a stand-up Black organization and you stand for what you believe in and the white man is the devil, you shouldn't have cared about what type of comments your nation would make about that situation. I don't care how much Black people love the white man. That's what he was trying to teach. Supposedly, separate from the white man. Don't love your enemy. The white man's the devil. Handle business. Kill him by any means necessary. Whatever was told, it was strictly against the white man. Now today, Elijah's compassionate about a statement of what Malcolm made about Kennedy, or was he pissed off about the money he wasn't going to get anymore? Was he pissed off about that?
He said the money he's not going to get anymore. What was that?
Because the Nation of Islam was being funded by a number of white organizations.
So you're saying that the reason why he said not to mention anything about Kennedy was because there were white people funding the Nation of Islam?
Yes, it was, and they still is. The KKK gave them land here in Magnolia, Georgia in 1963, 64. The Nazis.
So you're saying that these white organizations was in support of Kennedy, you saying?
Of course, a lot of them was in support of Kennedy. That was they good white. I don't know why people think because these white people get in these offices acting like they care about Black people, we believe that. I hear a lot of Black people saying Lincoln was the first Black president. Bullshit. The Emancipation Procrastination, because that's what I call it, never was signed, and it definitely wasn't to free slaves. It was to save the damn Union. So just because we got these Peckerwoods in office doesn't mean that they care about Black people. They just care about how many of their slaves they can continue to control. I don't care how good they talk. Kennedy wasn't somebody who stood for Black people. His family wasn't. They didn't care anything about that. They did whatever they had to do when it was time to get those so-called supporters or certain information off their back. But just like, what's her name? Jackie Kennedy? Like she said, him and Martin wasn't no different. Whoremongers, liars, snakes, manipulators of their own people. So how could we be worried about what went on with J.F. Kennedy? Why would we think he cared about it?
Do you know the name of those organizations that was being funded?
Let me go back into my notes. I have all that stuff written down because I had it done when I went against Madon about the Nation of Islam, and I was able to find it. So let me go back in here while y'all talking, and I can pull it up.
Yeah, because I think ultimately, either what the case was, when you're talking about organization, he violated, what was said, not to just him, but all the speakers within the Nation of Islam. And I think that ultimately, in light of, the infiltration, in light of, jealous people that wanted to have his spot, that definitely gave fuel, added fuel to the fire, because now they have something that they could point to, as an example of maybe some of the things that they were trying to put into the head of Elijah. But it's kind of hard to piece together what is being said, even with so they were pretty much, according to Nandi's theory, that the whole thing was just something that was just created for a specific purpose that would benefit, I guess, the system. So I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, from the very development of it, I guess it's being suggested that this whole thing was a sham from the very beginning. So I'm just trying to understand what would be the purpose of creating a system where they just had to create a system, to create an organization that was saying that they were the devil and promoted Black people to do for self. So they created that organization for what purpose? If it's like from the leadership, the very first leader, he was part of the scheme working with the white man. So they decided to create a organization to promote Black people to do for self, and that the white man was the devil. So I'm trying to figure out what would be the purpose behind that. And I'm interested in seeing not only that, what were the fruits that it produced, from they was actually working. It actually was cleaning Black people up. It actually was promoting black people to do for self. So I'm trying to figure out, put that together as to how that would hurt black people. The other thing would be, in light of, like you said, the leadership. You said it yourself that he wanted to hand Malcolm the organization. So he's jealous on one hand, but at the second time, he wants him to be the hero of the organization. Now, Malcolm said it that himself that, the information he got was from more so Wharf Dean Muhammad. And we see that he had an agenda, because ultimately he was one of the ones that led the nation to go into Sunni Islam. So I could see how a person could piece that together from what he was doing to destroy the nation of Islam, because we see ultimately what he did in the long run. I could see someone saying that, well, Farrakhan had a role in it because he wanted to be the leader of the nation. I could see how that can be. But for somebody to create an organization to uplift black people and clean black people up, and within their rhetoric, they're saying that this is the enemy, separate from him, and that the white man is the devil, and we need to do for self. I can't see how that would benefit, white people. I'm trying to piece that together. If it's always up from the top, so was it some type of compromise like after the fact? I'm trying to find out exactly what would be the agenda behind that.
You can actually pull it up. This was in 2021, actually. The Nation of Islam has been getting millions of tax dollars each year since their existence to provide security at public housings in Baltimore, Philadelphia, Chicago, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. They're also getting 501c3 funding. They were giving millions to them. They found out that the government has been giving millions to them since they started. Hold on, the Department of Housing and Urban Development is giving them money. 1 second, I'm waiting on all the rest of the list to pull up. And even his children just sued his estate. His estate was worth $30 million. How if he helping black people and he wasn't getting no money, they weren't selling them but bean pies and stuff, where he get $30 million from? Okay, the public housing, here it goes. But if Baltimore had a public housing unit with a large number of whites, which it used before, the courts ordered that the public housing be integrated. And an affiliate of the KKK, of the American Nazi Party, wanted to provide safety and respect to the residents. And the city would grant its security contract. So they actually had a hand in the security contracts and all of these bogus so-called undermining programs that the Nation of Islam was getting in order for them to get this money, just like they gave them land here in Magnolia, Georgia. And this is why they got all these, mosque and temple, all this different stuff built everywhere. They went in contracted in the bed with the American Nazi Party and the KKK and the government for years. So if the government is funding them, then they got to do what the government tell them to do. And they was in bed with killing Malcolm X. The government says of the Nation of Islam, we condemn what they say, but we will still find a way to get the money to them. Now, this is what the government is saying. And you can pull that up. All you got to do is look at where does the Nation of Islam get their money from, and all of these organizations will pop up. And how much they give them every year.
That's still kind of is unclear. So it's like, okay, I start an organization, because it wasn't like Malcolm was there from the beginning. He was like a lost person that eventually.
Oh, no. That's why I said in 1963, Elijah Muhammad was already in bed with the Nazi Party and the KKK. Let me pull up the information so I can share it. I'm just going to pull up the information where they gave him the land and the contract.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm still trying to figure out, like, okay, well, start an organization and to raise up the black man, and then when you raise up the black man, we kill him. That's what the goal was? Because I mean, You saying
No,
that
they
because
didn't start up an organization to raise up the black man. Elijah them always believed in integration. That's something that people don't pay attention to. He might have been talking about the white man and devil, but how you gonna talk about half of the members of the organization, or half of the people, wives in the organization, or they sisters, or they cousins? Michael King, Elijah Muhammad, all of these so-called, I'm gonna say, civil rights leaders and all this stuff, they've been in bed with these white folks. They've been getting money. Unfortunately, I have to even say that the Panthers has started getting money from communists, Jane Fonda, and all of this stuff. They all got in bed with the white man. And that's just keeping it a stack. No matter how much I love Hewitt and all of them, fact still remains, these people were getting funded by the white man. But some of the black people was about their people, and they weren't trying to go for that, so they got killed. And some of them still in bed with the white man, and they still getting funded today.
All right, so that's what I'm saying. I'm still going to the question of so when they created the organization, the goal was to get funding from the white man.
No, now if you want to know the truth, when they created the organization, in my opinion, it was to push a theocracy, control minds, get people up under their wing. That's just like they try to do with Scientology right now.
All right, so you're saying that teaching that the white man is the devil and separate will be good or bad?
I feel like separation is good for us. Separation. Because we got some devils in our background too. I don't agree with that. We got devils everywhere. But when you're an organization that's saying the white man's the devil, you saying the white man's our enemy, we should deal with the white man by any means necessary, and you in bed with the white man, you getting funded by the white man, you only mind manipulating my people, you mind fucking my people, putting them in positions to get in situations. But I haven't seen the Nation of Islam do anything for black people against the white man. Period. Never. Other than telling Malcolm not to speak about Kennedy. That's about all I can say about what they did for the white man.
Yeah, because Malcolm becomes this speaker, because remember he was into surprise, being a pimp and whatever he was, before, and it was the Nation of Islam that cleaned him up to raise him up to be the speaker within the Nation of Islam. It was through the teachings.
I ain't trying to be funny. Jail cleaned him up. It wasn't the Nation of Islam. And I feel what people say when they come to these religious organizations and stuff, but Malcolm had to have a choice. He had to make a choice on wanting to be cleaned up or not. That's the thing. People need to quit giving the credit to the Nation of Islam.
That's who he gave the credit to. That's what he said. I'm just going by what he said. He said that it was through the teachings of the Nation of Islam that actually got him out of that lifestyle and began to become the person that he eventually became. But like in terms of the situation that you was bringing up with the KKK, I don't really see that as an issue. Like, if the KKK is a separatist organization and the Nation of Islam is a separatist organization, and they promote separatism, like the Ku Klux Klan, they was against integration. It was against mixing with black people. So it would make sense that they would get with another separatist organization and say, okay, you stay over there and I stay over here. Okay, you can have this land and I'll stay over here. That would make sense to me.
Not if they can still come back and have control of whatever they give you. My daddy told me if somebody give you liberty, they can take it back.
But if they selling the land to them, that means that they own it, right?
No, they didn't sell the land to them. They gave land to them. They didn't sell the land to them, but it was contractual agreements on that land. This is another reason why the NOI has never been infiltrated. If you already see, to me personally, and a lot of people might not agree with what I'm saying, but Farad Muhammad, Noble Drew Ali, they were all a bunch of damn con artists and scammers. This organization was built on a bunch of lies. So how can you think that they could get us to the right place? Like Malcolm said, if you don't even trust the ideology or trust the information, how you think that you're going to be able to get to the right place with dealing with these people? And when Malcolm made that statement, of course, he was full-fledged in the Nation of Islam. He was the spokesperson of the Nation of Islam. Nobody would say anything bad towards an organization that they're affiliated with. So I can understand why at that particular time he wanted to give some type of accreditation to them. But in the end, Malcolm was very honest about a lot of things. And that's what really got him killed. Some people look at it as snitching. I look at it as being a stand-up black man. Because if you can turn the other cheek watching somebody rape children, turn the other cheek and watch a black woman have babies and they're not being taken care of, watch this man practice polygamy with a bunch of wives, and even the wives have came forward and talked about all the things that they went through, then something's wrong with the whole Nation of Islam. I commend Malcolm for what he did.
And that's another thing we got to explore is like, you know, one, you saying that the women were underage?
Yes, it was several of them.
To the children. So, do you have any evidence of that?
There was a documentary actually with the wives speaking about it. There are some wives, and then like people should just use common sense. How old are some of these wives now? Go back and look at their birthdays and look at when they was involved with Elijah. Yeah,
because I seen the joint, but when it was something with the ages. But when they did the backtrack, it was like one was 19, the one was 20. It wasn't never something like one being like 14 or 13 or something like that. So I'm not sure. It's a, you know, because that's from what I've seen. But so if you got something new that you want to present, then you know, go right ahead. But from what I've seen, it was like the youngest one probably was like 19 years old. But still, even with that being said, I believe that the exploitation of the women, which I do agree to, of on the part of Elijah Muhammad, that Malcolm knew about that already, even before, you know, the situation came out. Malcolm knew about his illicit affairs with those women. It wasn't until he was kicked out of the Nation of Islam that he brought that out. And this is something that he was actually admitting to. Now, that's why he apologized to Elijah Muhammad, because he said that out of emotion, he made that response in light of him being kicked out. But he already knew about that.
Yeah, he already knew. But like he said, until he did research, until he talked to the women himself, until he seen the children. And then what you got to think about, like you said, in those particular organizations, they have their own rules and regulations that they follow. And when Malcolm went and tried to confront Elijah and talk to him about it, he avoided the conversation. When Malcolm tried to bring him up against the board of the Nation of Islam, he refused to do it. Because who would be able to judge Elijah? He's the head of it. Who was going to make a judgment on Elijah? So Malcolm did try other outlets and other things long before he spoke on this situation. But since Elijah didn't want him to talk about it, he didn't want to discuss it, Elijah didn't want to go before the board, and of course Elijah was going to kick him out so he could try to keep him quiet, then you would have to wonder what was the point. If it was lies, if it was deceitful, if it was something that wasn't true, what did Elijah go through all of that for? He should have just went before the board or whoever he was dealing with and been judged accordingly. So Elijah breached a lot of the things that the Nation of Islam stands on when it comes to dealing with allegations and situations amongst their little cult. So where else was Malcolm supposed to reach, you know, getting his information out? And in his eye, he's protecting young women. So if the person, the pedophile that he's trying to speak with, that's just like if we in a court system. And if Elijah don't show up in court and he just keep running, they're going to put a bench warrant out on him till they catch him. So if you're looking at the same thing with Malcolm and Elijah, then you're going to kick me out on top of you being found doing wrong stuff. Just like Malcolm found out about the meetings with KKK. And I found out that Malcolm even attended the meeting. He also came back and brought issues up about that. Like, why the hell are we sitting here with KKK? Why are we doing this? I thought the white man was the devil. So it's more than just the pedophilia that Malcolm was revealing. It was also the lies and the manipulation of the organization. In one hand saying the white man the devil, but then on the other hand, everybody in the bed with him.
Yeah, and that's still like in terms of like his knowledge of the situation is what I was saying. Like he already knew about that, and it wasn't until he was suspended from speaking that he would then turn around and do that. Is what I'm saying. Like he already knew that Elijah Muhammad was abusing those women. He knew that. So it was like, was it because of the women or was it because he was kicked out? Because he already knew about that is what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying, if 2 or 3 months, see, this is what I'm saying. That's just like me. If me and you just say we was doing business together and I found out you was stealing money from me and I'm trying to talk to you about it today, you don't want to talk. You're avoiding me. You leave work before I get there. You come in before I get there. I come by your house, you're too busy. I'm just trying to ask you a question. Can we talk about it? If you keep avoiding me, that's time in between of me being able to get my information out. I'm trying to keep it real with you. I don't want to have to go to our other business partner and tell them you're stealing. I want to make sure these accusations are true. Let me talk to you. Now you avoiding me. I don't want to go and tell them that you're stealing. So let me talk to you over here at your house. You avoided me. Well, when you keep avoiding a situation, that's guilt. That looks like you're guilty. And if Malcolm went through the protocol, which he did, he tried to address the nation. He tried to address Elijah. He tried to bring up certain information before he came out speaking about that. None of us knows how long he went through that procedure with the respect and the love that he had for Elijah Muhammad. So you can't say that just because he knew already. He was already trying.
No, that happened after though he was exonerated. When he was suspended, that's when he began to do that. You know that, right?
But see, when Malcolm
like the whole process that you're talking about, from him interviewing the women, it was almost like it was a reaction, as opposed to him actually being concerned about it. Like it was like, so that's why it turned into a heated situation, because he already knew about it. So it wasn't until after, when he got first silenced, he was still in the nation. When he got silenced, that's when he began to reach out to those women. That's when he began to now question Elijah Muhammad. So that's what I'm saying. Like that was after the fact that he was already suspended, that he began to go through that process of, okay, well, it was almost like, well, what's up with you and these women? In these illicit affairs, and because it's not through the proper, like what you said, through the proper process of what the teachings told us on how we deal with women. So you're abusing these women. So that's when he began to interview those women. But it was after he was silenced by the Nation of Islam that he began to do that.
They skip around the fact that when he was suspended from talking, did he not take a trip to Mecca? Wasn't he somewhere over there at Mecca praying for a couple of months? How long was he gone after he got suspended? That was one of the parts of him being silenced. Elijah also ordered him to go over there and go over in Mecca, wherever he sent them to, in order to take a break. So if Elijah was doing undermining stuff to keep the information from coming out to the point where you done told Malcolm to go somewhere, because he was just suspended for speaking. Let's remember that. He was suspended from being able to talk. He couldn't be the spokesperson. But he was not kicked out the Nation of Islam at that time.
No, he wasn't.
Right. He was still a member. So what I'm saying is this. It wasn't after he was kicked out. It was after he realized Elijah didn't want to address the issue.
No, I didn't say that. I said he was, after he was suspended. He was still in the nation. But after he got silenced, that's when he began to interview those women and begin to do all those things. After he was, because they didn't kick them out. They didn't kick him out for saying chicken come on the roof. They suspended him. He was just silenced for, I think, a year or something like that. It was a certain amount of time he was silenced. So once he was silenced, he began to do that. He was still a member, but after he was silenced, he began to now, okay, well, what about these women? And let me interview these women. Let me see what's going on with these women. And that's when he began to now address Elijah. Like, okay, these women are saying these things. But he already knew that, though. He already knew that before. So it seemed like it was more so a reaction to him being suspended. This is what I'm saying.
Right. Let me play this clip. This is another clip I got loaded up. So let me play this because it's going to segue into a little bit of what you guys were just talking about. So let me share my screen really quickly. And then you guys give me your take on this.
I have a few words to say, and these are the words. We were very shocked yesterday on hearing of Malcolm's death. We have known Malcolm for quite a few years. Last year, 1964, was kind of bitter with us. Malcolm breaking out of the Brotherhood of Islam. It kindly upset us all. Due to the fact that he had been such a wonderful brother among us, we regret to see the man leave on his own terms. He said he was going for himself. After we discussed the, I should say, the disobedience part of his actions. And after we discussed that, gave him a chance to make himself a better brother in the circle of Islam. He left us. Said he was going for himself. We regret to have seen Malcolm leave.
Mr. Muhammad, do you believe, coming out of New York, that the assassin of Malcolm X was in allegiance with the Muslims in New York? How do you feel about that charge?
In fact, about it, that we have been trying to make investigations to find where this assassin come from. And we have not been able to locate him. We don't know him. And
Mr. Muhammad, could you tell us what happened between you and Malcolm X? What was the point of disagreement, sir?
the most of our disagreement was Malcolm wanted to use arms.
Use what?
He wanted to use arms, and I disagreed with him because we have always, for many years now, it's 34 years now, we never resorted to arms. And in fact,
now let's hold it right there, right? What do you guys think about what Honorable Elijah Muhammad says right there? That his issue with Malcolm X was that he wanted to use arms. He wanted to bear up arms. This interview happens right after the assassination of Brother Malcolm. And so Elijah Muhammad comes on and says, my issue with him is that he wanted to use arms. He wanted to take up arms against the white man. Does this not, at this point, in your eyes, demonize Brother Malcolm in the eyes of the white media and in the eyes of many other in the black community?
So you're saying that? So you're saying that Elijah Muhammad was demonizing Malcolm with that statement?
I absolutely. How would you take it if he says, if they're asking, what was you guys' disagreement? And he said, well, my disagreement with Brother Malcolm is that he wanted to take up arms.
Yeah, because that was an issue that was made publicly in terms of at the I forget what happened during the civil rights movement, where it was some people within the civil rights movement they got killed, by the police, I believe. And so he would return and do a speech where he actually said some of those things, about using more forms of aggression. But when you look at how the Nation of Islam was structured, that was just pretty much how they were moving. there was like, you know, the whole rhetoric was like in the height of the civil rights movement where it was nonviolent. So it was only nonviolent on the part of black people. So you have, on the other hand, people being violent on a group of nonviolent people. So the rhetoric would have been, why are you trying to integrate with a group of people that clearly doesn't want to integrate with you? And why do you feel as though you will resort to yourself getting beat like that just to integrate? Now, the rhetoric within the Nation of Islam would be more so predicated around we're separate, don't mess with us, and we won't mess with you. But it's a hard situation to defend the people who want to integrate. And I think that Malcolm, as he begins to dialogue consistently with those people within the civil rights movement, began to kind of see a much broader thing than the outside of the rhetoric within the Nation of Islam.
I want to add something to that. I also called, which I wanted to bring up when Malcolm opened his own organization. Elijah also said that Malcolm left under his own terms. So he wasn't kicked out, he left. And if you are familiar with the meeting that happened between Martin, Mandela, and Malcolm, Malcolm was telling them then, we need to get some arms. It needs to be by any means necessary. He was one of the people that had a conversation with Martin, and Martin started to lean towards the poor people's march, worrying about the poverty of Black people. He started to realize getting spit on in billy clubs and dogs and water hoses wasn't what he should have been doing. He figured out the integration movement was leading his people to slaughter. Now, my problem is this: the Nation of Islam, the FOI, and all of these people were supposed to be the tough guys. Remember, they disciplined, they got the ties on, they standing up there looking big, they'll knock somebody out, but they didn't even want to bear arms. Make it make sense to me. He didn't want it. How you gonna kill off who giving you something to eat? That's like biting the hand that feeds you. That's why he didn't agree with them going against the white man like that. He had already sat down with all of the KKK and all of these people. So if he got contracts with them, that definitely would have, sparked a race war. Look at the results of the Black Panther Party when they were carrying guns and dealing with the police and all of this different stuff, versus the Nation of Islam, who was just over there, no disrespect, but talking and having and eating bean pies. The Black Panthers got more blood on their hands than the Nation of Islam do when it comes to these white people, even though they all got in bed with them. But the Black Panthers totally believed in separation. The Nation of Islam didn't do that. The Black Panthers didn't have no white members. They had a White Panther Party that created themselves because they idolized the Black Panthers, but it wasn't no white members. The Nation of Islam has been a mixed organization of different individuals. And that's something that has been going on since the beginning. And then they got Arabic backgrounds. They talk that stuff, but they still got Arabic backgrounds, and they was dealing with a lot of Arabs. Even when you look at Gaddafi, people always look at it, well, yeah, he is an African, because y'all know what I feel about the word African, but that was an Arab. So they was finna push the same theocracy, the same type of so-called, I'm gonna say martial law on their own people, because they do it now. And even with the way the Nation of Islam is ran, you got to pay a membership fee. Most of the savings goes straight to the organization. The people not really getting anything, you're eating beans and milk and bread every day. If you ask me, Elijah was running a slave quarter. And now that it's modern day, they want to integrate with Scientology. Make it make sense to me. It seems like everything that they stand for is supporting the white man. So why would they pick up arms against the white man? They was getting $1 million or something. They was getting millions of dollars every year. They was doing security for the white man. They was standing arms and guard at the security for the KKK apartment buildings. If those are not visible contracts to see why he didn't want to get rid of the white man, hypothetically, because, they twist stuff, then, of course, Malcolm was going to be a problem. And he done went over here and got the civil rights leaders and all of these different people to get ready to bear some arms too. That would have been too much power. The poor man's march, had that march happened, it was going to be a lot of bloodshed out there. It wouldn't have ended up like this fake march on Washington that Martin actually was paid off to do. It was going to be a whole totally different situation than that. You had people like Stokely Carmichael. You had all these different young brothers, Bobby Hudson and Fred Hampton, even though they had not formed the Panther Party completely yet. But these individuals were ready to put some bullets in somebody. They didn't want to talk. That's separation, security for our own people, and standing on our 10. The Black Panthers, they were self-sufficient for a long time. The Muslims been getting money from the government since they started. And I don't even blame that on Huey, because Bobby Seals, when Huey was arrested, was the one that went left and started running for office and putting Huey's name on the ballot while he's sitting in jail for shooting a police officer and taking money from the white man. When Huey came home, he didn't trust nobody but David Hilliard. So we have to look at the aspects of the Black Power movement versus these Negroes that was trying to be civil. We were already civil. Dogs, billy clubs, the white man, and the police. We had everything already to keep us quiet. We just didn't have no humanity. And that was the issue there, because we didn't want to even be equal to them, because their equality is not substantiated to what we believe in. Black Panthers, the Black Power movement, was separate but equal opportunities as far as being able to build, being able to have their own food, not integrating. They were good at integrating us, but they didn't integrate no bank accounts.
So, so you make a powerful statement. So before you guys go further, I'm gonna play one more clip from Malcolm X, especially after we just heard what Sister NANDI presented. Also, previous to that, the previous clip, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when he says that his issue with Malcolm X was, with Brother Malcolm, was that he wanted to bear arms. And I guess in against the white man. And so that was the issue with Elijah Muhammad. And after his death, but let's see what Malcolm X actually is saying after his return from Hajj from Mecca. Let's hear his words. Hold on one second. I want to play that.
Malcolm X. I think a lot of people are confused by the new Arabic name, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz.
I've always had the name on my passport, Malik El Shabazz, only I only used it in the Muslim world. Well, Hajj is a title that is given to any Muslim who makes the pilgrimage to Mecca during the official Hajj season.
Well, will you now use Shabazz and drop X?
I'll probably continue to use Malcolm X, and I'll probably use it as long as the situation that produced it exists.
You don't feel that Shabazz takes the place of X?
My going to Mecca and going into the Muslim world, into the African world, and being recognized and accepted as a Muslim and as a brother may solve the problem for me personally. But I personally feel that my personal problem is never solved as long as the problem is not solved for all of our people in this country. So I remain Malcolm X as long as there is a need to protest and struggle and fight against the injustices that our people are involved in this country.
Are you prepared to go into the United Nations at this point and ask that charges be brought against the United States for its treatment of American Negroes?
Oh, yeah. Please. Right in my phone. The audience will have to be quiet. Yes, as I pointed out when I was during my traveling, that African nations and Asian nations and Latin American nations look very hypocritical when they stand up in the United Nations condemning the racist practices of South Africa and that which is practiced by Portugal and Angola, and saying nothing in the UN about the racist practices that are manifest every day against Negroes in this society. Even in South Africa, those Africans aren't faced with bayonets and aren't faced with police dogs I would be not a man. If I was in a position to bring it in front of the United Nations and didn't do so, I wouldn't be a man.
Malcolm, do you intend to lead the charge in the United Nations?
Well, I find that to say you're going to lead something creates a lot of hostility, division, jealousy, and envy. I hope to work with any group of leaders or any group of organizations to do whatever is necessary to see that this problem is brought before the United Nations.
Have you had any commitments from any nations in Africa to support you?
I would rather not say at this time. But one thing I found in my travels, all of them look upon us as their long-lost brother.
You realize the implication is that you have had such commitments when you say.
This is your interpretation of what I said. One thing that I found in all of my travels was that all of the Africans, not only Africans, but the Asians and the Muslims, look upon us as their long-lost brothers. And America had actually tricked many of them into a hands-off policy by giving them the impression that she was honestly trying to do something to solve the problem. My argument over there was designed to prove that it is impossible for the United States government to solve the race problem. It's impossible.
Malcolm, on your trip abroad, you said you sensed a feeling of great brotherhood and that conceivably you would be working toward integration in this country now. At least this is what you're reported to have said. You didn't comment on it.
I don't think that I ever mentioned anything about working toward integration. They haven't even got integration right here in New York City. You have worse integration problems in the North than they have in the South. So if it doesn't work, if you can't bring about integration in New York City as international, cosmopolitan, up-to-date as it's supposed to be, you will never get integration anywhere else in the country.
You're prepared to work with some of the leaders of the other civil rights organizations?
Certainly. We will work with any groups, organizations, or leaders in any way, as long as it's genuinely designed to get results.
Does your new beard have any religious significance?
No, not particularly, but I do think that you'll find black people in America, as they strive to throw off the shackles of mental colonialism, will also probably reflect an effort to throw off the shackles of cultural colonialism. And they may begin to reflect desires of their own, with standards of their own.
Malcolm, a more controversial remarks was a call for black people to get rifles and form rifle clubs sometime back. Do you still favor that for self-defense?
I don't see why that should be controversial. I think that if white people found themselves the victim of the same kind of brutality that black people in this country face, and they saw that the government was either unwilling or unable to protect them, that the intelligence on the part of the whites would make them get some rifles and shotguns and protect themselves. Now, Negroes are developing some kind of intellectual maturity too. And they can see that having waited upon the government to protect them has been a wait that has been in vain. So any of them who live in areas where the government is not able to do its job, then we do have to get to do a job of protecting ourselves. No Negro.
And so, let me get back here. So, we just heard from Malcolm himself. Even after his trip back from Mecca, he stood on exactly what Elijah Muhammad said he stood on, and that's taking up arms. Bearing arms for black folks in this country to protect themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so why would Elijah Muhammad have an issue with that? Do any of you agree with Malcolm, even today, with that saying, should we be taking his understanding even today and bearing arms as a community, as a people, for means of a person, as he said, to protect ourselves as a matter of survival. Mm-hmm. As he said also, as we become more intellectually astute, we should we should understand that we need to protect ourselves. We need to have the right to bear arms. Why would that be an issue for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Go ahead.
Okay, come on, go ahead, Solar.
No, go ahead.
I would say this, same thing with Martin. Their culture, the religious backgrounds they had. That's why he said the cultural chains. Your culture is what you follow as far as your religion, or like cultural nationalists who was only worried about dashikis. Like he said, when you release the cultural chains and all of those different things, and make sure that you separate yourself from that. Those are most of the things that keeps us from bearing arms and supporting, and securing ourselves. And that's another problem that he had with Martin. That's why he said the big six wasn't nothing but a bunch of frauds. They bamboozled us. They was a fluke. They took a payoff because Martin didn't want to bear no arms either. Martin wanted to keep getting spit on, keep getting dogs and billy clubs and all of this stuff over his head. And I know this because my granddad was marching with him. Hosea Williams was marching with him. Hosea Williams lived in my neighborhood in Kirkwood, and he always told us, keep your overalls on until you make moves to substantiate yourself. Because I'm always a field Negro. I will never be a house nigga. So when you got people that has had affiliations with Michael King and all of these different individuals, you understand why. They had funding. They were the middle-class Negroes that people said the civil rights leaders and all of these different individuals were somebody who got privilege or recognition. But what happened to all of the million Black people that were in poverty, inhumane conditions? We didn't have anything. So when you got elevated middle-class Negroes that feel like that they done made it somewhere, they made it to the mountaintop, why would they want to bear arms from the same people that they are in love with, or want to deal with? Like they said, a bunch of these people were down low integrationists. And it's a difference between integrationists and revolutionaries. Being a revolutionary means to make a complete change for the benefit of your people, not to go and integrate or become reformers or put yourself in a position of the same things that we running from today. And
let me stop you right there real quick, Sister Nettie. Can you repeat your definition of what you just gave of what a revolutionary is? Because I think that's a very important and a powerful point, and that's a solid understanding of what that is. I think people say that a lot, but they don't really understand it. And I like the way you just put that into terms. So can you tell us again what your understanding of a revolutionary is, and then continue? Because I think that was great.
A complete change for our people. I could put it that simple, a complete change for our people. Revolutionaries, they make things happen. Let me say, revolutionaries like Huey them, even though all of these programs were hijacked, but the WIC program, sickle cell anemia, Singers for Fearful Environments, we were being self-sufficient, we had security, and our people was actually being able to separate and start to make a difference in our communities. So this is one reason why the white man wanted to infiltrate us. Too many Black people, they already said 3 Black people doing the same thing. That's a gang. Get them off the street now. It's going to be some problems. So you got communities of Black people, and then you got people like Huey them organizing the Peace Stones, and they got the Baby Cribs and the Crips and all of this stuff that's coming out of that movement, militancy, versus the Nation of Islam that don't want to bear arms and eat bean pies. That's not a complete change. Those were reformers. They were being reformed by getting funding or dealing with the government. They had white people at all of their meetings and stuff. They had white people with hands in the power movement and the structure. That's not revolutionary for our people. That was a benefit for the white man, because not only was he able to keep us on the plantations, but now even when we go and get something to eat or whatever we was doing, it's being controlled. Like the integration of the restrooms and stuff, I didn't agree with that, because now they killing us all with the food. Food was good and natural back then. Now we dying. So if you're not making a complete change for your people, and the first thing we have to do is be separate, because we can't make the decisions to make complete changes for us under the guidelines and the government or the judicial system that they have created today in 2021. When we were separated, at least we would fight. Some, the real people, we would fight. We would stand for each other. We wasn't telling the white man everything or bringing them in our communities. But as soon as they got in, now look, we don't have anything. We don't even have a hood or a ghetto anymore because they done took that too. So I'm just saying, what changed for black people? Nothing. Nothing. We just in worse conditions than what we were in already. After all of these leading blacks, because there are no black leaders that we dealing with. These were leading blacks. The black leaders were the ones that was murdered, killed. The people that made a change. As soon as Malcolm started talking about bearing arms and separated himself from the cultural nationalism that he was in with the Nation of Islam, he was going to be a threat. Let's remember, Malcolm was a drug dealer, snorting powder, pimping. He was already gangster before he met him. But the cultural nationalism put him in a position where, like he said, as a man, I'm not getting spit on. I'm not going through that. So I got to separate from those who don't believe in what I believe in because that's weakness. He's sitting here watching people getting bit with dogs and water hoses, and the Nation of Islam that's supposed to be one of the most powerful black organizations. That was supposed to be the organization built with the most black men that was strong and looked like they'll tear somebody's head off. But I've never seen them one time come and do anything, march, protest, let me just say that, donate nothing to anybody's black's funeral, anybody black who got killed. And no disrespect, with all the war and stuff that was going on then, they've never even had an argument with the white man. So how can we believe that they think the white man's the devil? If I could just see something they've done, to even just standing up in a room all day hollering the white man the devil, and I ain't trying to be mean because a lot of people ain't gonna like what I say. But the white man is the one that ran their organization. Then you get the Arabs. Muhammad was an Arab, just like Gaddafi, like I just put it in there for Asiatic Lion. How could you say Gaddafi wasn't an Arab when he was an Arab nationalist? That's what his title is. Muammar Gaddafi was an Arabic nationalist. And as soon as he had that conversation with Farrakhan and he got them $20 million out of Muammar, some kind of way he ended up getting killed. Funny how everywhere the Nation of Islam pops up, somebody's body come up missing or somebody dead. Soon as he made that contract and gave that money to Farrakhan, and they talk about Farrakhan gave it back. Bullshit. He had that man killed. So a lot of people have to pay attention to stuff. This is bigger than us just talking about what the Nation of Islam was doing here. I did my research on it. It was less than a month after he met with the Nation of Islam, because they have been known for misappropriating funds and doing a lot of stuff, but they never was arrested for tax evasion. They were never infiltrated here. They went after Malachi Z. York for pedophilia. They went after Malachi Z. York for tax evasion. They went after Malachi Z. York for traveling with children. What is so different about Elijah Muhammad? Don't make sense to me. None of it. No, but Drew Ali was a fake, I'm just saying, the whole situation, even when Drew Ali brought it to him, it still descends from Arabic teachings and culture. So when you got the Arab, one of the worst slave trades that we had, and most of our people were converted. Our people didn't know anything about this religion or any of that until they were converted to Islam. Now we got this person, which Elijah don't look like he a black man to me either. I really think that's Farad Muhammad. I'ma just be a stack. I think that's Farad, because ain't no way he just disappeared. Ain't nobody never really seen him. And you pop up and he done gave you the Nation of Islam. It seems like to me they playing a game. Because Elijah and Wallace was supposed to be in Farad was supposed to be in prison when they met. A lot of people say I'm wrong for that, but that's not. I'm right. They conjured up this little bull crap when they were sitting in jail together, supposedly. But I'm wondering what's Farad in Elijah's head. Because when you look at them pictures and you look at the aging of Elijah, and all of a sudden Farad just disappeared. I guess he on a spaceship somewhere according to the Quran. But I'm just saying, how is that possible? It doesn't make sense to me at all. None of the stuff that comes with the Nation of Islam.
Yeah. Interesting. And so we're approaching the 2-hour mark. So we're going to start to wind this down. Solar, What's your synopsis on this whole thing, man? How are you how do we tie this in, and how should we be looking at this information, man? We're just hearing.
Yeah, I think it was definitely something that we need to kind of piece together and understand and get all the facts straight. You're never gonna know totally what's who played what and what role that they played and who was more involved in the assassination of Malcolm. But you, as you can see with that last interview, was very telling. Even when he was being asked questions, people got to understand that white supremacy is a system. So when they was asking them certain questions, who's listening, and that's why the questions was being asked that way, and that's why Malcolm was answering the questions in that manner, because he understood that, when he was like, "Oh, well, are you working with other African nations?" And he's like, "I'd rather not say." And then God would say, "Well, that means that you are." Then he said, "No, that's what you're saying." That whole back and forth is Malcolm understanding that he just came back from Mecca and he was being followed, as you can see in his writings. He says this in his writings when he wrote to Betty Shabazz, that he was being followed by what he felt as though was the CIA. So when you're talking about CIA, you're talking about something that's more international. So understanding that he was moving a certain type of way. Now, I agree with what Malcolm was saying in terms of the idea of bearing arms, to protect ourselves. But I understand why Elijah Muhammad took a different route. And that was because of, us being in this system and us being the minority group in this country. It really wouldn't be smart to try to have a civil war with the majority. It wouldn't be smart to do that. And plus, not only that they have more guns, but they have other weapons and better quality of weapons. So I guess from that standpoint, a person that's the leader of an organization felt as though, well, first we have to build up the organization. First, we have to take advantage of the idea of separatism. We have to do better, educate ourselves, and begin to produce things, to actually develop ourselves. And eventually, maybe we could get to that point. But at that point, coming out of, in the height of segregation, it just wasn't wise to do. And we could see that even in the 1970s, how quick the Black Panther thing was, because what they did was the Black Panthers was exercising their Second Amendment right. So what they did was they changed the laws. They just changed the laws. So it was like I think that ultimately even what Malcolm was saying, like he was working with people, and he even opened the door to work with white folks, Malcolm. But he said that I work with white folks, but they just can't join the organization. So everybody was working with white folks at that point, if that's the case. At that point, if we saying that the Nation of Islam working with white folks, in that same speech that he was just doing, if you play the rest of it, you'll see that he says, yeah, because they asked him, "Will you willing to work with white folks?" He said, "Yes, I will work with white folks, but they just can't join the organization." So I don't know, like the idea of, since somebody working with white folks, that makes them an agent. That's something that needs to be challenged. I think other things that need to be challenged is, the certain allegations of, we can't just say, well, a person just working with the white man, and or they've been agents or stuff that I don't know what's the foundation of it. Like, I heard that Elijah Muhammad was an Asian. These are all different things I don't really think have any significance in terms of what the Nation of Islam produced. And what did it produce? It produced an outstanding men. Really, when you read about the Nation of Islam and the businesses that they started and the schools that they erected, that's something that you can actually read on in terms of we talking about accomplishments. And and if not, if you want to overlook all that, than the very person that we're talking about, the Nation of Islam produced, and that would be Malcolm X. And we see that also another individual that came in the 90s, that would be Khalid Muhammad. I think that sometimes what happens is that you have, what they call a first resurrection and a second resurrection. And I think sometimes what gets mixed is when Farrakhan began to resurrect, and I say that in quotes, the Nation of Islam, certain things in terms of, said the 501c3s and all those things in that nature. When you read about that, he is starting the Nation of Islam. He is starting because the Nation of Islam under Warth Deen was just pretty much integrated into a form of Sunni Islam. So it would be in the early 80s that he would begin to resurrect the Nation of Islam. And he had a different philosophy than Elijah Muhammad in terms of, certain rhetoric that was used, from the white man being the devil, things of that nature. And also, the taking advantage of certain things that, I guess, for whatever reason, we believe that if a person get a 501c3, that makes them an agent. That's a whole nother thing. But that would be in the second resurrection. So it's like it's a lot of things that we could actually, get benefit from looking at this hindsight. I think that it was definitely some good clips that you showed, and we should kind of do this more often with other historical things.
Agreed. Appreciate you, Solarmind. Appreciate you coming on the panel tonight. Sister Nandi, I'm going to give you the last few seconds of the show so you can close us out. We really appreciate you coming on. I really enjoyed your information. And the conversation was fantastic. The exchange between you and both of you and Solarmind. Definitely, we got to do this again. I think it was good. It's a great conversation to have, man. So close us out, sister. You got the last few seconds.
Okay, I want to thank y'all for asking me to come. Yes, it's really good information that we're exchanging. I've learned a few things myself today. I want to speak on what Solar was saying. They had certain laws and stuff like that, but let's remember, we've been bearing arms. We can take this all the way back to the Black Deacons of Defense, one of the idols of the Black Panther Party. We could take it back. See, when you got field niggas was out there with them shotguns and didn't want nothing to do with the white man. House niggas did. And what I'm saying, I'm not saying 501c3 causes you to be an agent, but this is why they infiltrated the churches, the Black churches and all of this stuff, because at first, Black Deacons of Defense and people like that was running the churches. 501c3 was created because if you look at the criteria of 501c3, one of the main things, actually two of them, you are not allowed to speak out against the government and you are not allowed to get involved in politics. Those are two detrimental things. Like Fred Hampton said, revolution is politics and politics is revolutionary. So if you can't get involved in politics and we can't even speak out on the number one oppressor, which is the governmental system, just because you're getting a little funding, you're sold out. You're sold out. You rather take the money and stand down on the revolution. And that's the problem that I have with 501c3 recipients. And you can look up the criteria. You can't even go out, you can't run for office. You can't be involved in that. You cannot even pick a political candidate because you are going against the very government that's funding your organization. So that's detrimental, not only to, that's why Black churches don't get involved anymore. The Black churches were used to sit in there with the shotguns. Now they just do praying. They control what scriptures they talk about. They control how they dress, how they eat. If you really read all of those pages in 501c3, you'll see so many clauses in there what we can't do. Who would want to take that funding? It's like I'm being bought off for the government. So you really are still being an agent to a point, because now you're an agent in the government that's destroying my people by not being the productive organization you claim to be just for a few dollars. So that's the problem that I have with that. And as far as, I just wanted to add that it was something else Solar said, but I kind of got stuck on that one. So I know y'all want to close the show. We'll have more time to do this another time, but I just wanted to mention that. So I believe in revolution and not reforming. When you're reforming, then 501c3, whatever you're getting from the federal government and stuff like that, it's a hindrance from Black people being able to be self-sufficient. That's the key thing. We still begging the white man. We still waiting on them to give us something. So that's not beneficial for our people. And when you're reforming, then you become an informant. Trust me. Because you signed the oath to that governmental system, what you have to uphold to the best of your ability in order to continue getting not only the public status through the media and everything that you get, but as well as the money. So that's just something I wanted to add. I believe in revolution before being a reformant, always.
Facts. That's a great closeout. Being a revolutionary, we need to become more revolutionary minded. You know, I agree with that 100%. Sister Nandi, where can we find you at? What's your channel? I know you have a channel out there. What's your channel? Where can we find you? If you're not, when you're not on Solar Vision Debate League debating.
It's Sister SISTA NANDI 3GP. And I also dropped my email in the chat because I like for people to come on, and you guys are more than welcome because we have a lot of I have like religious people that's trying to learn stuff and want to put their opinions out on my page. I'm also with some of the sisters, and I would like for you brothers to participate. I wanted to do a 10-person panel, but I wanted 5 brothers and 5 sisters that wants to come up with solutions on how to deal with the manosphere, womansphere issues, and we come together to unite. But what are solutions? A panel for solutions and not badgering each other. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe the brothers can tell us some things we can do. We can exchange some information with y'all, and we do some type of contest or something. Let's try these things. Let's see if it works out and come back and give a report. So I would love for you brothers to help me with that and participate in that, because I want to stop all of this arguing and this unity that we have. We powerful when we all together. You know what I mean? So
agreed.
Yes.
Yeah. So Sister Nandi, she dropped the link in the chat. She dropped the email in the chat. Y'all reach out to her if y'all want to be a part of that panel discussion. I think it's been a great show. Sola, you got any announcements, man, you want to close us out with?
Yeah, definitely. We want to get back to the debating. It's going to be tomorrow. We got Hukanan. He will be squaring off against Out the Blue. Is capitalism how it works today good for Black people? I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we just had that one on.
I know. Yeah, I'm sorry. We got Yashar going up against Rabbi Lewis. Is the Golden Calf YHWH? Domo will be squaring off against Akmalak. Should Black people continue to fight for equality? So we have debates lined up for the rest of the week. We had an interview with Josh. He's going to be upset with me, but it's almost 1 o'clock, so we're going to have to push that again. I want to do it tomorrow, and we'll do it early tomorrow before the debate. And I have some news that I want to actually present to the debaters in terms of what will be rewarded in the championship. I'm definitely want to make some cash rewards. Maybe a couple thousand dollars that we're going to put on the actual championship, along with the championship trophy and all the other stuff that comes with the championship. So I'll be announcing that tomorrow as well. I did have a survey to rank the judges that I'm submitting to the debaters, and so they could go ahead and check that out. And then once we get the results, we'll go and I'll bring it to the judges, and we'll have a discussion based on the ratings. And what else? That's about it. For now, we're good. Let's get back to the debating. Definitely was a good conversation, and I'm looking forward to being part of the panel with Sister Nandi. And I definitely want to talk to Sister Nandi behind the scenes about some other things you know, pertaining to, you know, going in that direction. And I'm in agreement with her in terms of, you know, how to approach, you know, this whole situation with the manosphere and the womansphere. I think that would be definitely a more mature, responsible approach. So I'm definitely in support of that. But that's all I got for now, bro.
Man. So peace, man. Peace and blessings to the family. Shalom. Hey, man. Solar Vision Debate League. We on top, family. Don't be fooled by it. We on top. You know what I'm saying? Always imitate it, never duplicate it. Solar Vision Debate League, baby. We out. Shalom. Tanks on the ground, man. Israelite intelligentsia.